Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Elko County Democratic Congressional District 2 Candidates Forum, sponsored by the Rural Nevada Democrats, the Rural Nevada Democratic Caucus, and all the candidates that are in front of you. Oh, okay, we do have one more candidate.
Oh, well, now.
Yep.
Where does he end up on the list? No, that's a barricade. Well, that's a barricade.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, welcome again. My name is Lance Whitney. I am the chair of the Elko County Democrats. I would like to recognize my fellow officers, our vice chair, Nancy Snyder, our secretary, Ken Boyer, and our treasurer, Nancy Morrison. I would also like to recognize a couple of other individuals. Our intern, 16 years old, ladies and gentlemen, Tyler Rose. A couple of other special recognitions, individuals who have been instrumental in this party, Miss Sally Dunn and Miss Betty Magny. And our former chair and fearless leader, Miss Lynn Jones. I'm under the understanding that there is somebody here from the Elko County Clerk's office. If you would go ahead and stand up, raise your hand. Who is here to answer any sort of voter registration questions anybody might have? Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. And last but certainly not least, I would like to thank the candidates sitting up on the stage who made a choice to come to Elko County. And I would like everybody to make a mental note that these individuals chose to be here. So thank you. That being said, and without further ado, I'm going to turn it off to my sister from another mister, my very dear friend and colleague, Miss Cynthia Mahudin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm shorter than Lance, so I gotta put the mic down. It is an absolute privilege and honor to be here. I'm happy to see a full room. This is beautiful. And I want to thank Lance, before he leaves the room, for helping us get this going here in Elko. He took a lot off my plate and has just been a fantastic partner in crime, so to speak, in getting the word out for Democrats across rural Nevada. In case you haven't noticed, he and I are very passionate about this issue. I also want to thank our chair, Devin Doan. He makes the magic happen. He's in the back. Could not do this without him. And his trusty sidekick that's been cruising around with us and unacknowledged until today, Jeremy Pearson. Thank you, Jeremy. And last but not least, Marie Bledsoe, our secretary, who you heard from earlier. She's got the service. You gotta all do what she says. Okay, so we're just gonna jump right into it today. As you all know, we have a large number of folks who took the leap and are running to be the Democratic nominee for Congressional District 2 from the great state of Nevada. We are going to flip this district in November. And as you all know, we're going across rural Nevada where there aren't a lot of Democrats. Luckily, we have a nice number here. It's really important to get out there in the areas that are red and let them know we are here, we exist, and you matter. Just to let you know, the candidates have not been given the questions in advance. This is our third stop, so I haven't had to recycle yet. I will ask the questions, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer. Due to the number of candidates and our limited time, we will have 4 questions. Then the candidates will have 2 minutes for a closing statement, where they will get to share with you all what they think is most important for you to understand about them, and why they are the best candidate to run against the Republican nominee, so we can turn this district blue. So, immediately to my right is Samuel White. I'm not playing a favorite. What did I do?
You good? Is it back? Should be back.
Try? Oh, yeah, we're good. Okay. I'm not playing favorites, but I do want to acknowledge Samuel. He's not feeling well. That's why he's wearing the mask. But he rallied and he was here today because it was important for him to meet all of you. So, Samuel White. To his right, Gamael Enriquez. He goes by Gum. Gray Kid. To his right, Josh Bear. And then to his right, someone many of you probably know, Kathy Durham from West Wendover, Mark Jolly, Matthew Funkin, and last but not least, Morgan Wadsworth. Okay, so we're going to jump right to it. My first question today is about crypto and financial regulation. American financial history, the stock market crash of 1929, the savings and loan crisis in the 1980s, the subprime mortgage crisis in 2008, has shown us that when regulation is relaxed and industry gains political influence, risk-taking often escalates, and ultimately the public pays the price. While most Americans do not personally invest in crypto and other forms of such meme coins, these financial instruments are making their way into 401ks, pension funds, and even state treasuries such as New Hampshire. In addition, banks are starting to offer crypto services. Could unregulated crypto contribute to another financial crisis? Would there be a taxpayer bailout if that happened? What regulations or safeguards would you propose to protect the average American? Samuel, you're up.
Okay, so I am under the weather. We'll see if we can get through this. And for my fellow candidates, I did bring some hand sanitizer, so you guys will be okay. As far as crypto and regulation just on the stock market in general, I think it's criminal that our senators and congresspeople can have stocks and trade in the market that they're making regulation and proposing contracts for. To me, that is unethical and something that needs to be stopped. As far as crypto specifically, this president has put forth his own meme coin, and we know that he is basically funneling billions of dollars to himself and taking advantage of these lacks of regulations that his administration and the previous administration have chosen to not enforce. I would like to see, honestly, I don't think the American currency should be based on a crypto coin. I don't think the stability is there. I think it's been shown to be extremely volatile, and I think that there should be regulation as far as tracking where the money goes, who's using it. I don't think it should be just a black box of funneling money and giving a blank check to whoever, which is what we're seeing with Donald Trump's administration, where Donald Trump is personally enriching himself through a meme coin. I don't think that should be an option available to any politician, and I don't think it should be an option outside of regulation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Coming up?
Thank you for that question. Crypto is a fugazi. Crypto is hogwash. Crypto is bullshit. It is. It is. Number one, it competes against the US dollar. The US dollar is what has kept global leadership, prosperity, that benefits the international system that our forefathers built after World War II, Bretton Woods, the Marshall Plan, the United Nations, etc., etc. It also has a direct negative consequence to the high cost of everything, not only for us here in Nevada's 2nd Congressional District, but across the country as well. High cost, affordability issues. So what I would do is immediately put a moratorium on crypto, because this is nothing more and nothing less than casino for the 21st century for the ultra wealthy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gummy. Great.
So I'm going to be a little controversial on this. I have a few confessions to make. So I was there at the beginning of the crypto industry. I was the chief risk officer for Ripple. I'm also from the Federal Reserve, the Board of Governors, and so I am a big believer in the US dollar. I just want to separate crypto, which is a coin you can speculate, versus blockchain. So blockchain changed the world. It wasn't invented by the wealthy, it was invented by a reaction to the financial meltdown. And it does have potential to change the world and give access to everyone, including to the US dollar. So I do believe the US dollar should be the dominant currency in the world, and that is to the benefit of the United States. And the way that will happen will be the US dollar will run on blockchain rails. It's the same rails as crypto, but it's the US dollar. The US dollar I support comes with full FDIC insurance. It comes with all the consumer protections, compliance controls. We don't want the US dollar being taken over by non-US entities, and that's what's happening now. You may have heard of Tether. That's Tether running on crypto rails without regulation in the United States. We can talk about a moratorium on crypto. That's not how crypto works. Crypto cannot be stopped. Now, we can outcompete it by using the underlying technology and using the regulation, the compliance controls, the consumer protection that we have built in our banking system to make it safe. We don't want to lose out on our currency to other countries that are willing to innovate. Imagine what would have happened. Yes, nuclear power is a problem, but just think what would have happened if Germany got there first. We want to regulate it, we want to be leaders in it, we don't want to be laggards, and we want to control our own destiny. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Josh?
So I'm not going to claim to be a crypto expert. I have a PhD in physics, but I don't know a lot about crypto. So I do know that it's fundamentally digital gold. It was created by a libertarian who did not trust central banks, and he wanted to have some kind of independent currency that would act like gold, and the fact that you have to mine for it using all kinds of digital resources, which takes a lot of power, takes a lot of water, it's tremendously inefficient. One thing that I want to talk about right now, and I really wish that Greg could actually mention this, is that he has a bunch of crypto businesses. He has USDC, he has Global ID, and he has Vast Bank. So he's looking for regulatory changes to have the US dollar running on crypto rails. It will make him an extraordinarily wealthy person. Now, I don't know whether it's a good system or not, because like I said, I don't know enough about it. But I definitely think it's something that he should be disclosing in this race, because it is a massive conflict of interest for him to be in Congress trying to get the regulations that he needs for the financial revolution that he wants to launch. Like I said, I don't know whether it's the right way to go. It may be, but I don't think he's being transparent about it, and he really should be.
Thank you, Josh. Kathy?
Thank you for saying you don't know a lot about crypto, because now I feel so much more comfortable saying, I don't know a lot about crypto, other than I remember about 10 years ago I had a student come up to me and say, Miss, do you think crypto is going to replace the dollar? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know what crypto is, and here we are talking about crypto and whether it's going to compete with the dollar. I do know this, my dad always taught me, never, ever, ever let anything weaken the US dollar, because that is how your country fails. What I also know about crypto is that it is digital currency. which means it tracks. We have the Fourth Amendment, which is a right to privacy. And anytime we start digitizing things that track our every movement, that track what we're doing, what we're buying, somebody gets that information. And it gets stored in data centers. And data centers, they're taking up our land, they're taking up our water, they're driving up our energy costs. And then people have information about us, and we are giving away our Fourth Amendment right. When we talk about regulation, I know sometimes some people think that regulation is a dirty word. And we have to find a balance with regulation, because regulation came around for a reason. Government is here to protect our rights. And before we had regulation in different industries, everybody could do whatever they wanted. When back in the Gilded Age, when we didn't have regulation, you could build a building any way you wanted it, and you didn't have to have ventilation, you didn't have to have windows, you didn't have to have heating and cooling. Back in, if you've ever read Upton Sinclair, The Jungle, you didn't have to have regulation in the meat industry. You could, mix whatever you wanted in with the sausage and sell it to the people. Regulation is critical. So as crypto goes forward, one, we all need to learn what it is. The government needs to know what it is, and the government needs to regulate it so that it protects the right of the people and not the corporation.
Thank you, Kathy. Mark?
So should crypto be something that we tie our retirement savings to? Absolutely not. Crypto is an investment tool. That's what it is. There are already people who have rushed into that market and become investors in it and are being made very wealthy by this. Now, what happens if any of them decide to short stock, sell stock? Your entire retirement could be based on a billionaire's whims. This is something that we should absolutely not allow. Crypto is fine for wealthy investors who want to go and play capitalist somewhere. That's fine. But it has no place for the public good. Now, as far as crypto being different from a blockchain, yeah, Greg's right about that. And you know what? Josh is right about him being a major investor in blockchain technology and crypto. Now, there's a reason that blockchains are not used in national banking systems. Because they are a lumberous system that it was designed for end users who don't trust each other. Banking systems have to be dynamic, they have to be fast. And so if you want to get your money and know that it's secure, then we need to keep it on the system that is currently working. Now, on that same token, I actually want to have public banking. And Greg talks about this too, but there's a difference between the two. I believe in a postal service banking system, something that was created in the 1920s. But the thing is that I want for there to be absolutely no attachment to anyone who could make any kind of a profit off of this. It needs to be a non-profit system that is run for the people, by the people, who can make small loans, get checking services, things like that, and I do not want any kind of an investor coming in and being able to supplant himself in a sideways capacity to be able to make himself even wealthier off of this. It needs to be for us, by us. And I'm sorry, but no crypto as a retirement scheme.
Thank you, Mark. Matthew?
Could you repeat the question for me, please?
It's a long one, but sure.
I know.
You are at the end, I understand. American financial histories: the stock market crash of '29, the Great Depression, the savings and loan crisis of the 1980s, the subprime mortgage crisis in 2008, have shown us that when regulation is relaxed and industry gains political influence, risk-taking often escalates and ultimately the public pays the price. While most Americans do not personally invest in crypto and other forms such as meme coins, these financial instruments are making their way into 401ks, pension funds, and even state treasuries such as New Hampshire. In addition, banks are starting to offer crypto services. The question then is, could unregulated crypto contribute to another financial crisis? Would there be a taxpayer bailout if that happened? What regulations or safeguards would you propose to protect the average American?
So the question is, will cryptocurrency essentially create what 2008 was? And I believe absolutely yes, but it's going to be way worse. What we're seeing right now in the trend of our economy in this nation, rising costs across the board, that are affecting everyone in their families and their pocketbooks. And cryptocurrency is a way for folks to get around the system. Cryptocurrency is essentially how a lot of human trafficking and drug trafficking is able to be done without regulation, without oversight, without anyone really knowing where the money's going from, where it's going to. And so, yes, I don't know a lot about cryptocurrency, but I have heard and seen a lot about the negative pieces. Now, in 2021, our state legislature, through our former governor, decided to bring a blockchain county government style bill to legislature, one that I was very proud to help pass the knowledge around that this is really bad. We do not need foreign governments being able to buy up land all across Nevada and create their own county level governments using this technology and creating their own smart communities. We're talking about Elon Musk being able to buy up an old farm that hasn't been developed and create and become a space baron like he wants to become. And this is the problem. The billionaires are the ones who are running cryptocurrency. They're the ones that are getting away with making more and more bucks off of the people and off of the economy and draining everything out from our own resources that we should be getting.
Thank you, Matthew. Morgan?
So I also don't know too much about crypto. I come from a environmental science, healthcare sort of background. Those are more my strengths, so I will speak to that. Being the youngest person at this table, I'm very concerned about, and I'm being born and raised in Nevada, and my family being here for a really long time. There's a saying, whiskey is for drinking, water is for fighting, and mining cryptocurrency takes a lot of water, a lot of energy. The data centers take a lot of water and a lot of energy, and they pollute things. And these are things that they really want to bring to Nevada because we have the land for it, but we don't really have anything else for it. And the way that we're going with our water usage in this state and in this country, climate change, all those things, the effects of cryptocurrency, the mining portion of it, is, I don't think it's worth it. And innovation for the sake of innovation or growth for the sake of growth, in healthcare we call that cancer. So I don't think we need to be innovating for the sake of innovation. We do need regulations, and we do need to do things pragmatically, smartly. We need to look at the long-term effects of things and not just be like, well, what if another country does it first? Okay, well, let's see how it works out for them. We need to be more careful when we try to enact these massive change with very short-term views and goals.
Thank you, Morgan. You win the award. We're not going to make you run. Okay, our next question is about corruption. There has been so much corruption in the Trump administration. In fact, a report released in February 2026, the U.S. has fallen to its lowest ranking ever, 29th out of 182 countries by the Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index, CPI for short. I'll start by providing a clear definition of corruption. It is the abuse of entrusted powers for private gain, spanning petty bribes to grand systematic theft that weakens governments, economies, and the public trust. Please provide an example of corruption either by President Trump himself, his family, or members of his cabinets, or members of Congress. How do you see yourself as elected, holding those who have engaged in corrupt practices accountable? Samuel.
Well, I don't think we have enough time for me to list everything Trump has done that's corrupt. I think off the top of my head, one of the first ones that comes to mind is our invasion on Venezuela, and Trump personally enriching himself to the Venezuelan oil that's captured there. That's one of, again, we could go on. I believe we should be pressing criminal charges. I think Trump should be removed. I don't believe, and not just Trump, I think everyone in this administration is guilty of treason. That is what corruption is. It is using power to enrich themselves instead of working for the people that have elected them into those offices. And we are seeing the devastating effects of those situations. So, and it's not just our current it's not just our current domestic policy, but it's also our foreign policy that is going to be drastically affected going on for, I don't even know how many years, but it will take probably decades, if not, to actually repair a lot of the damage done to our allies. So I would like to see very serious criminal charges against Trump, the administration, his supporters, and I would like to see ousted those supporters.
Thank you, Samuel. Camille?
Thank you for that question. To me, the corruption is best represented by that so-called flying fortress that Trump was gifted by one of these countries in the Arab world. That is beyond egregious, because not only does he disrespect the office of the presidency, our Constitution, but seriously puts in danger our national security. So what I would do as congressman is work with anyone, and I have a track record of 10 years of working across the political spectrum to make the most powerful set of laws that cannot be undone by studying nonpartisan reports on the best approach to rid this type of egregious corruption at all levels of our federal government, because it tragically puts at risk our democracy, our national security, global security, the interest of commerce, human rights, human dignity, and human freedom for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg?
So I'm going to do some tough love. I mean, we've tried prosecuting Trump. He's beaten the rap. He takes our attempts to prosecute them and just turns it into more drama and dominates the news cycle. We know that the way we need to beat Trump is at the ballot box. Now, let's talk about corruption. I mean, going back to Khashoggi, the journalist from the Washington Post who got claimed to get his wedding license in Turkey, got detained and chopped up, and Trump said, well, we don't really know that the Saudi prince was behind it. He was texting the folks who were chopping them up, but maybe they were talking about the ball game. Okay, this is terrible, not just as a human tragedy, but that's the same Saudi prince that Jared, Trump's son-in-law, has done a deal with. They gave him a couple $1 billion for a hedge fund. Who just went for the negotiations with the Iranians before we bombed the hell out? Trump sat his real estate agent and Jared. Not one expert on nuclear anything, okay? All the reasons that have been given for this war, poppycock. Joe Biden would call it something else, all right? This isn't just about someone getting rich from crypto schemes or all the other things, the plane, Trump University, you can go down the list. This is our national security. We're cutting deals. What's that line in Top Gun? Your body's writing checks that our country can't cash. It's our national security that's getting rich. This bankrupt Trump isn't just enriching himself, he's taken us all down the toilet with it. It's a corruption at a level we've never imagined before. But we gotta beat him at the ballot box. We gotta win Congress, because that's where accountability starts. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. John?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to belabor the point with the Trump corruption. We all see it, it's everywhere, and it's not just Trump, it's from top to bottom in his administration. We saw the borders are Tom Homan. We still don't know where the $50,000 in the carpet bag went. And that's just one of the smallest examples of the corruption with this administration. But I want to talk larger about corruption, because corruption has been there before Trump got here. We have Congress people trading stocks. We have a Supreme Court that has made it almost impossible to prosecute public corruption. And you basically have to have somebody get a picture of you physically taking money from somebody. And we have that with Tom Homan. He's still walking around free. So the anti-corruption efforts have to be much more serious. And I think it's a critical issue because it's the reason that so many people have lost faith in the government. They have lost faith that they can trust the government. They think that everybody is bought and paid for, and that the reason that nothing gets done is because of that fact. This is one of the reasons why one of my main issues is that we need to get big money out of politics. People believe that everything and everybody is corrupt because of the big money. The big money prevents us from getting legislation through Congress. Until we fix this problem, we are going to struggle to get anything done, and we are going to struggle to restore people's faith in our government. So I am proposing a constitutional amendment called the Ban Big Money Amendment, which will do more than overturn Citizens United. It would limit spending to voting age citizens. It would cap spending to some percentage of individual median income. It would have a list of things that are defined as political spending. It would restore the power of governments to cap campaign spending, not just campaign contributions, and it would make it a felony to violate it. Now, I know that everybody thinks that it's impossible to get a constitutional amendment through, but we need something like this to build a popular movement around, because that is what it's going to take to get this done. This will never happen top down, and you need something to build that movement around. So I am trying to launch a movement around this, and it's going to be a long-term goal. This is just the start.
First person to hit the timer.
This is the first you all hear that. That's the air horn. That's the countdown. Our candidates have been trained fairly well, but every once in a while.
That's been doing great.
Still Anyway, thank you, Josh. And I thought I'd explain that to the audience because they're not familiar with it yet. Maybe they'll get more familiar. We're going to find out. Kathy, if you're ready, you're up. Thank you.
Okay, you know what I love about this question, even though it's not a question to love, because when you really think about it, it's pretty dark. But on most of the questions, we all kind of have the same answer. On this one, there are so many things to choose from. We're all going to be able to pick something different and still not get halfway through the list. Rule of law is the reason I'm running. Too many of the checks and balances, separation of power, and the rule of law that I teach in my government classroom got thrown out the window in 2016, and that's what got me in the race. A year ago, Robert Mueller, the late Robert Mueller, said, if we had evidence the president had not committed a crime, we would have said so. And that was clear back in the first administration. Whether it's not divesting himself from his businesses, using the office to enrich himself, the list goes on and on. But I think the biggest crime against the American people are the lies. Relationships are built on trust. The root word in trust is truth, true. And we get lied to every single day by this president. He works for us, and the lies need to stop. How many times has he told us the election was stolen when we know it wasn't? He tries to undermine our faith in our democracy. So that's probably the biggest one. The second biggest one was January 6th. I watched that live with my students. It was supposed to be a simple exercise in watching the peaceful transition of power by the certification of the vote. And instead, 16, 17-year-old students watched a coup in live time. And then the biggest part of that was he let them all out. He pardoned every single one of them who tried to overthrow our democracy. And then he has suppressed the Epstein files because he's all over them. The list goes on. Thank you, Kathy.
So, yeah, I think as everybody else has said up here, there's no way I'm going to get through a list for Trump. And frankly, I'm not even going to try. The emoluments clause, okay, there you go. He's been accepting gifts all over the damn place. That's already unconstitutional. The thing is that apparently our rule of law is based on gentlemanly conduct and a handshake agreement. I am not seeing anybody going after anyone to prosecute them. Why? Because they're all doing it. Like, I am sorry, but like, the insider trading, let's just talk about insider trading. Happens on both sides of the aisle.
There is absolutely no one who's doing anything about it because it's a loophole. It's not even a loophole. It's just everybody's doing it. So Clarence Thomas, another good example. Guys bought, and nobody can do anything about it. So what can we do here? Well, we can, first off, just stand up and say it out loud in Congress, and then call people to task. There's a reason why when you go to Congress and you're making $180,000 a year, and then 3 years later you're a multimillionaire. It's because you bought. It's not just the insider trading, it's also back-end deals, it's boardrooms that are off camera, and it's lobbying efforts that are done for these people. There are things that I want for this country that Elon Musk cannot buy me. I want national rail. He can't write me a check for that. Jeff Bezos cannot give me any amount of money that's going to give me national health care. There are things that I want that I have to make sure you guys get first, because I want them. And yeah, the corruption, that's going to tear apart our country. It's something that we should be rooting out when we see it, calling people to task, and bringing daylight to every dark corner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Matthew.
So Donald Trump and his administration, but really, let's say Donald Trump is the biggest perpetrator of corruption that we've seen. And the deal is that he is exposing how bad and how far and how deep that corruption goes. It is, and a lot of people don't want to hear it, but the corruption is in the Democratic Party as well. Yeah, I'm hearing silence because it's unfortunate, but it's true. Now, he has exposed himself. He is corrupt as hell, and we all know it. Now, how? This is all on money. Everything is run on money, and it's about who has the most and whose pockets it's going into. This is why one of the best things that we could be doing right now, and I'm proud to be a balance and accountability candidate, because we're calling for a ban on Citizens United. We're calling for a ban on stock trading by Congress folks and their spouses. So no longer can you just be like, well, I'm not trading, but my spouse is, wink, wink. None of that money's not going to my bank, sure, And then we want to make sure that we're also stopping those insider jobs and lobbying with a 5-year moratorium. So they're not getting that high-paying job, coming right out of their seat, going into that big high-paying job in the lobbying firm. Instead, they can, with all that insider information, that's pretty beneficial to those companies and those lobbyist firms. Instead, they got to wait 5 years. Now they're out of touch. We also see the bribes happening in Supreme Court. This is why we need to make sure we have an enforceable code of ethics on our Supreme Court justices. Now, what are we going to do about Trump and his administration? We're going to impeach, we're going to convict, and we're going to remove them. Yes, and we can do that and everything else we need to expand access to health care, make sure that we're taxing the billionaires and making them pay their fair share.
Thank you, Matthew. Morgan.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Happy to. There's been so much corruption in the Trump administration. In fact, the report released in February 2026, the U.S. has fallen to its lowest ranking ever, 29th out of 182 countries by the Transparency International Perception Index, also called the CPI. I'll start by providing a clear definition. Corruption is defined as the abuse of entrusted power for private gain, spanning petty bribes to grand systematic theft that weakens governments, economies, and the public trust. Please provide an example of the corruption either by President Trump himself, his family members, members of his cabinet, or members of Congress. How do you see yourself, if elected, holding those who have engaged in corrupt practices accountable?
I think when we take back the House and the Senate, we're gonna have to have a modern day American version of the Nuremberg trials. I think we're gonna have to go through everything. Doge, the Epstein files, it's gonna have to be everything. Everybody's gonna have to be investigated. Everything's gonna have to be, made public, and everybody's going to need to be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. And that is something that I want to see happen, regardless of who wins this seat. Is we can't let this slide, because what the corruption we're seeing on the surface, I can guarantee it's 10 times worse from what we're not seeing. But in regards to Congress specifically, You know, the money is a huge issue, as many of us have said. I do agree with Josh that we need an amendment to ban big money. For an example, you know, Mark Namaday, one of his top donors for years and years is the mining industry, and he has, you know, passed legislation that hurts the people of Nevada but benefits the mining industry, and then they write a massive check for his campaign. So we're never going to get where we want to be if we are electing politicians taking money like this, and if we continue to allow them to take money like this. So absolutely, we need to ban big money, and we need to investigate everything that the Trump administration has done these last couple of years. And we need to be prosecuting every single person that has broken the law, that has been corrupt. Let's be honest, it's the majority of them. And I also agree with Matthew that we need to impeach, convict, and remove Trump, and not just him, but his entire cabinet. So that's where I stand on that.
Thank you, Morgan. So when I sent out the notice of this tour to the county chairs in CD2 that have a central committee, I asked the chairs to let me know if any of their constituents had questions for me that I would ask in their forum. And Lance has provided me 2 questions. So these next 2 questions are written by Avery Mello, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, and she lives here in Spring Creek. I'm so sorry. I know an Avery, that's a she, so thank you. First question. Nevada residents are paying more because of the war in the Middle East, so this is a local issue as well as a national one. At the DNC spring meeting in New Orleans last month, the Resolutions Committee rejected a resolution to limit AIPAC's influence and referred 2 resolutions on conditioning or pausing weapons sales to Israel to the Middle East Working Group. Since this group has no binding power and can't be given timelines to produce reports, my expectations for a conclusion are minimal. Do you believe the DNC should have adopted those resolutions? And if elected, will you publicly call on the DNC to bring them back for an up or down vote? And thank you, Avery.
So I think this goes into just a broader issue of politicians accepting money from AIPAC and other foreign entities. I will not and do not take money from AIPAC, and I do not believe we should be funding foreign wars. I grew up, most of my childhood, we were at war in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and all I've seen from it is lack of funds for healthcare, lack of funds for infrastructure, a ballooning defense budget that does not benefit anybody but Lockheed and Martin and entities like them. So I would vote to restrict any arms sales to Israel. I do believe that we should be supporting a genocide, no matter who is committing the genocide. I think it is immoral and wrong, and I would be voting to do everything in my power to prevent this country from further support of those atrocities.
Thank you, Samuel. Carmio?
Yes, the short answer is yes. Now, a lot of folks are under the impression that we only have oil coming out of that part of the world. But in fact, we actually have a lot of other critical ingredients for the global economy that have a direct impact on the high cost of everything and affordability challenges here at home. I'll just mention one, fertilizer, okay? Now, historical context is incredibly important. Next time we look at a map of the Middle East, notice that most of those international borders are almost perfectly drawn, and that is because of the great powers during World War I and World War II. Israel is very much a product of colonial experience in that part of the world. You have very few organic countries, one of which was Iran, Turkey, and others. And so it is absolutely baffling that we, specifically Trump, allowed himself to get bamboozled by Netanyahu and do something that is not only against the interest of Israel, but against the interest of our country also. So what I would do is I will drag Israeli diplomats back to the negotiating table for a two-state solution, and if that does not work, no more arms. Period.
Thank you. Great.
I agree. If we don't have a two-state solution, no more arms, no more money for Israel. We're already well past that mark, and so in unequivocal terms, I support no money to Israel at this time. I also don't like PACs. I don't like Citizens United. You know, I'm able to fund my campaign. I don't think I should be able to do that either. I think there should just be funding like other countries where each candidate has a set amount of funding. It's like the salary cap in football. Works pretty well for parity in football. We get teams that win, not because they have more money, but because they have a better team. I see no reason why American democracy would not be better off if candidates differentiated themselves with their positions rather than with their pocketbook. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Josh?
The answer is yes to the question. The DNC and lots of members of the DNC receive a lot of donations from AIPAC. There seems to be a lot more support for Israel within our leadership and the Democratic establishment than there is amongst we Democrats. I have been frustrated with how Israel has been acting for a long time, and I don't believe that we should be sending any more arms or money to Israel, period. It's not been a good ally to us. It has been a false friend, and I don't think Israel can be trusted. There's a person, remember the guy who was the spy in America, who he's now close to the Israeli government? He got on TV and said that Israel should threaten us with nukes if we didn't give them what they want. So, yeah, but as far as the war in the Middle East goes, and I think this is an important point to make, is that it's costing us a tremendous amount of money, like upwards of $2 billion every day. And the problem is that the president can go to war on his own authority. And Congress cannot stop him unless they get enough people together to pass a resolution to do so, which, as we've seen, when you don't control the House and the Senate, you can't get that done. We need to change the War Powers Act. Right now, the president can go 60 days before there has to be a vote. He can then decide to go another 30 days if he says that there's a national security reason for it. So that's a whole quarter of the year where the president can do whatever he wants with the awesome power of the U.S. military. We need to change that act so that an affirmative vote of Congress is required to continue military activity after a span of weeks, I think like 2 weeks rather than months. Because we cannot go on like this. Trump is destabilizing the world and destroying our global reputation, all because Congress does not have enough power over war-making authority. If I get into Congress, I will definitely push hard to try to do something about that.
Thanks, Josh. Kathy?
Ditto. I too do not believe that corporate money should be in politics, and AIPAC is a prime example of how it corrupts our political system, and it feeds the industrial war complex. I'm somebody who comes from a long line of military veterans. I have a son in the Air Force currently and 2 grandchildren in the military as well. So this war with Iran, that is an illegal war, weighs heavily on my mind, not just because of the destabilization that it's doing, but it's personal to me. It's driving up the cost of our energy, it's driving up the cost of our food, it's driving up everything, and it's pushing our reputation down. And, you know, Article 1, Section 8 is what gives Congress the power to declare war, and yet we have a president who constantly, unilaterally decides that he's going to use our military. So I also agree that we need to pass a war powers resolution. And Congress needs to simply stop funding this war. And you know, Israel has a right to exist, so too do the Palestinian people. Iran has a very, very brutal regime, and we need to do what we can to bring peace there, but threatening to bomb a civilization off the face of the earth is not the solution we should be looking for. You know, I wish that we could take all the amount of money that we are putting into the industrial war complex and ask ourselves, what would this world look like if we spent that kind of money trying to spread and create world peace? So I'm against giving any more money to Israel or anybody else who thinks that the military is to go out in conquest. The preamble says to provide for the common defense, not offense. So no more money to Israel.
Thanks, Kathy. Mark?
So the answer to the question is yes, I would. And as far as taking AIPAC money, absolutely not. I'm not into blood money. But beyond that, we just got out of a 20-year war in the Middle East. And the last administration ended that, and then Trump got in, and now we're back in again. Some of us up here have lived in a state of war their entire lives. And frankly, we spent trillions in wars in the Middle East for the last 20 years, which, I don't know about you, but I don't really think I got much out of that. I got a lot of death, destruction, and people who fear us. You can't make friends at the point of a gun. Now, we've got a president, when the Epstein files comes up, he bombs somebody. When somebody brings up corruption, he has no problem destabilizing a country, maybe threatening some of our allies, maybe putting others on lists like Cuba. I am tired of one person getting to capriciously and unilaterally being able to deploy the largest military the world has ever seen. He isn't supposed to have that power. That's not the War Powers Act, or how it's supposed to be applied. And the reason that it's being applied that way is because Congress isn't doing their job. They aren't going to stand up to it. There are too many people who are making money, keeping their careers by being yes men. Well, for me, personally, I don't have any interest in that. I want to build things. I want for the American flag to look like a sign of peace and friendship to everybody. I want for our allies to think that we are on their side again and not be losing friendships around the globe. I want for Canada and Greenland to love us and not be afraid of us. Yeah. And you know what? I'm just going to give it up.
Thank you, Mark. Matthew?
Well, I first want to thank Avery for the question and bring it back to answer Avery's question about the DNC and the Resolutions Committee not passing the vote on the Israel arms in Israel. I think it's important as Democrats to know how the DNC operates, and this is a lot longer than a 2-minute answer for me to give. But the short answer is that the DNC chair and the powers and the big donors are the ones who control who sit on those resolutions committees. Now, if you want that resolution to make it to the floor for a full DNC floor vote, it has to pass the resolutions committee. And good luck if it's something that's going through them that they don't like, because it will not even make it to the resolutions committee if you're lucky, it even gets heard. We tried to pass banning dark money in primaries. It didn't even get heard. And then we had to try again, and finally we got heard, but there was no vote to even have a vote on it, right? There was no motion. And so this is how the DNC operates. So if it doesn't make it out of the resolutions committee, it will never make it to the floor of the DNC for a full vote. Now, as a congressperson, obviously, there's not a lot of power that I would have over the DNC, but we do have our levers of pressure that we can apply, and especially making sure that we organize people inside of the Democratic Party, that is the DNC represented by chairs, vice chairs of all the state parties across the nation, and then the elected DNC committee members from each and every single state as well. And then you have the appointees from the chair, which is just whoever he likes to put on the committee. So as you can tell, this is controlled by money. It should be brought back, but at the end of the day, the DNC has no power over what happens in the world or in this nation. And we need to make sure we're getting a representative elected to Congress who is not going to accept AIPAC money or send arms to Israel.
Thank you, Matthew. You're getting church fired. That'll be your first time. Okay, Mark, you're up.
Yeah, yes to that question. I also do not take AIPAC money, And, you know, again, being the youngest person at this table, this is kind of becoming a hardline issue for my generation. My generation is extremely fatigued with the constant wars and genocides and destabilization that we are seeing in the Middle East, because that's all we've ever grown up knowing and seeing. And, you know, the APAC issue is massive for my generation, and I do not know if the Republican or Democratic Party, as they are right now, but DNC and RNC, they continue to take APAC money and continue to vote for weapons to Israel. I don't know if they're going to survive my generation when we continue to get older and continue to vote more, because this is a hardline issue for very good reason. And, you know, it kind of gets to the point where, are we the United States of America or are we the United States of Israel? Because we seem to kind of do whatever they want. Our politicians do whatever they want, obviously because of all the money. And we're at a point where enough is enough. Okay, we have funded horrible things in Palestine. And that's our tax dollars. While our country is bombing and paying for these bombs in Palestine, we can't afford healthcare. Our gas is going up. We can't afford to buy a house. You know, the system is broken, and we're spending billions of dollars a day in Middle Eastern aggression and funding more aggression in the Middle East. And it kind of just, it gets to a point where enough is enough. And going forward, that's what we have to do. We have to draw that line. No more AIPAC money, no more weapons for Israel, regardless. I don't think, you know, we should even put a stipulation on it. Enough is enough.
Thank you, Morgan. Okay, this next question is also from Avery. Nevada currently has approximately 70 operational data centers, with another 70 planned or under construction. NV Energy has publicly stated the company is anticipating challenges in meeting the RPS compliance, referring to the renewable energy standard established by state law. The utility now reports it will need 47% more energy than it forecasted just 2 years ago, a gap driven almost entirely by power demand from new and proposed data centers. The question now is, do you support a moratorium on new data center construction in Nevada to preserve electricity and water for its citizens? And you're up, Samuel.
Yes, I support a moratorium on new data centers, and the current projection of 47%, I've also seen projections that if we continue, it will more than double the amount of electricity that we actually need here in Nevada, supporting just data centers. It has been shown that a single data center can cost as much electricity as an entire city on its own. These are things that we should not be rushing to build our infrastructure around. These are projects that are going to take a decade or more to complete if we're looking at upgrading all of our infrastructure. So these need to be sound investments that are actually going to benefit the people that live here and not cost them everything. We've seen in other states where now people can't afford electricity, or they have to have rolling blackouts because the data centers can't be shut off, of course, because that would cost people money. So what we need is to halt the production of data centers here in Nevada. We need to take some time to really study the effects of them, and we should be working right now. There are a couple counties that have been reluctant to meet up and actually discuss this issue, and we should be holding those counties accountable to actually show up, talk to the people, and put the brakes on this thing before we cause essentially a natural disaster here in Nevada.
Thank you, Samuel. Camille?
Short answer is yes, absolutely moratorium. Then we need to have nonpartisan studies to figure out what is the right balance between too many of these data centers and the right amount of data centers. Also, while that moratorium is there, we need to potentially renegotiate these at the federal level based on the recommendations of the study and potentially have these data centers be used as a source to fund a universal basic income, which is at the center of my platform, a universal basic income, providing everyone with $1,300 transfers, just the way we had during the pandemic. Alaska has shown us that for the last 50 years they can do this, funded through oil. We can fund it through perhaps data centers, Tesla, Amazon, and the mining industry. And I also want to connect this question to the prior, which is the Middle East and all that stuff. This is a symptom, right? The oil, the Middle East, the perpetual war, it's a symptom of 50 years of economic inequality. The CIA itself admitted that they overthrew the first democratically elected government in all of the Middle East, Iran, over oil. That was more important than democracy and human rights. So in other words, US foreign policy failure is what has created that mess in the Middle East. This is why I am also a huge proponent of a Green Marshall Plan, which is the international equivalent of a Green New Deal or the Inflation Reduction Act, drawing inspiration from World War II to transition to energy independence, clean energy, solar, and things of that nature, ending perpetual war. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Damayan. Great.
So look, a moratorium isn't enough. We gotta roll this back. Somehow Nevada got lost on its way from having an amazing history about mining and the casino hospitality industry. We're struggling to find our third act. Is it gonna be distribution? Well, you've seen some of those big boxes out there. Is it gonna be data centers? I don't really like those choices. Okay, maybe distribution centers. But data centers in a state that doesn't have any of its own oil and gas, is short of electricity and is short of water, and data centers don't really make more jobs. So why the hell would you be chasing data centers? Let other states that have too much of that stuff chase that. We have got to find our own way. If you're going to let a data center into Nevada, we shouldn't be like trying to attract it here, like trying to attract the stadium for the Raiders or something. This is something that is a negative externality. We want to discourage it, right? So a moratorium is not enough. We've clearly gone down the wrong path. We need to think as Nevada about what we want the future to be. We have a glorious history, but we need to pick what industries. One day the mining will be gone, and the way online is going with gaming and whatnot, we're trying to change over to hospitality, but we're going to need a more resilient Nevada going forward, with better jobs, different jobs, more resilience. I'm here to build. I really love and respect and was attracted to the Nevada that was, but we need a Nevada way forward. That's why things like the permanent fund, like Alaska has in Norway, to invest in the future of Nevada, it's got to be very different than the hand-to-mouth Nevada that we've lived in since 1864. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Josh?
I definitely support a moratorium on new data centers. And as a congressperson, we're talking about a moratorium at a federal level, not just in Nevada. We want to stop things in Nevada right now. We need to go through the state legislature and hold responsible the people who voted for the tax incentives for the data centers to come here. Because that's why they're all coming here. They're coming here because of those tax incentives. They're coming here because of the proximity to the Bay Area, so they have low latency, so the communications are fast. And the land is relatively cheap and there's lots of it, right? That's why they're coming here. So a moratorium at the federal level is what we need in order to put these things to a stop. And right now, I think we'd honestly be doing this industry a favor, because if you look at all of the circular financing that they have right now going on between companies like Oracle and OpenAI, it's just showing you that we're closing in on the bubble. I don't know the bubble popping. I don't know that all of these data centers are going to get built. And I want people to understand what the data centers are for. They're not just for storing your data. They're not for transactions. They're building out all of these data centers because these things are the brains of AI. There's all these companies like OpenAI and Google and Anthropic. The reason they want to build all these things is they feel if they build enough of them, that they'll be able to scale up their compute power enough that they'll be able to arrive at artificial general intelligence. They're all trying to give birth to the machine god. They all want to be the person to do that. I say we need to slow that down. And we do that by putting a moratorium on new data centers and having public hearings in Congress so that people can get educated on what AI means for our future, and we can start building some good public policy around it, because it is going to be a massive transformation in our society. And for once, I would like us to get in front of one of these technological transformations so that it's the ordinary people whose lives are not destroyed by it. We need to have things in advance so that we make sure that regular working people are not once again made to pay the price for technological revolution.
Thank you, Josh. Kathy.
I'm a community over corporations and a people over profits candidate. And when we talk about AI, what we're talking about is, first of all, yes, it takes up our water. It drives up our energy costs. It buys up our ranching lands, which is also part of the economy here in Nevada. As Josh mentioned, what are they using this data for? First of all, they're using it to track our every movement. You know, we release that, you know, when we sign up for whatever app, so they know where we go, they know where we shop, they know the music we listen to, they know the photos we take, and all of that data is for sale, which violates our Fourth Amendment. When you go shopping now, they've got surge pricing, they've got customers paying one price for airfare where another one pays a different price. All of that is based off of the data that you're using. AI at the top, we think, oh, ChatGPT, that's a small product. But what AI and these data centers are is it is a huge industrial complex that operates off of energy, land, and water. When you process the data and you run these data centers, you're polluting the air, you're polluting the water. Go look at what's happening in Missouri where they brought up the farmland. The water is turning a milky white. The air is being polluted, the ground soil is being polluted. This is an environmental disaster. It creates maybe 7 to 10 jobs to run a data center once it's built, and that data center runs 24/7. So not only do we need to have a moratorium, we need to put a stop to them altogether. The other thing about AI, they predict that if we continue to allow this, that 70% of entry-level jobs will be gone by 2030 and replaced by AI. That's an economic disaster for us. So we need to get rid of AI and invest in a different type of technology for our economy.
Thank you, Kathy.
So, yes, I would support a moratorium on the data centers. Right now, there is what is essentially a gold rush going on to try and develop these as quickly as possible so that we can have techno-futurists who are in charge of all of the data going forward. Now, I am not a big supporter of that for a lot of different reasons, but I'm also not a supporter of what's going on because of the environmental reasons. So, and I know everybody's talked about this up here. AI data centers need to be tied to green energy. We do not need to be footing the bill as communities for these things to be going in and sucking up power and raising our power bills. And if they want to be able to build these things, they need to be doing it in an ecologically responsible way, and that's it. As far as the water use goes, there's a couple of different ways of doing these centers, and they need to all be closed-loop systems, not ones that drill, lower the water tables, and then evaporate them out. So as far as being built here, absolutely not. We're in a desert. They should be built elsewhere. Now, the other thing that we need to discuss about this is, yeah, the AI thing. So we have had in this country a shipping of our manufacturing jobs for the last 40 years. And now they're starting to do it with the intellectual jobs, the ones that are accounting and other such things. We're already seeing it happening. This is another sell-off of the American workforce, and so I don't want to see that happen. As far as the moratorium goes, yeah, we need to be stopping this. I don't want for there to be private investment that is going to be privately held and away from the American people for these data centers, which is what these things mean. I want for us to be able to move forward as people together, and we need to have public ownership of public utilities, which I'm sorry, but that's what these data centers actually should be. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Matthew.
We are in the driest state in the world, like not the world, but in the nation, right? Driest state in the nation. My gosh, my brain. The reason that these AI data centers are coming to Nevada is because of the tax abatements. They don't have to pay taxes into our revenue, and the thing is that by the time that tax abatement runs out, they've already closed up shop or moved on, or they're a new company altogether, and they get to recycle that tax abatement. So they never actually end up paying into our revenue for the state of Nevada. That's a pretty damn big incentive to come here when they're billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar companies. And at the end of the day, absolutely, yes, we must have a moratorium on all AI data centers across this nation. We have major issues with water, the energy that it takes to run these places. Right now, out of the 70 that were mentioned by Avery, 44 of them are in northern Nevada, in CD2. Most of them aggregated around Urington and the USA Parkway area in Reno. And they are actively building them, and they're building them as fast as they possibly can, because they want to make sure they have as much of it done while the regulation is not there. As you see, Trump and the Republicans want zero regulation whatsoever. They're continuing to advocate for zero regulation on AI data centers, and robotics, because they can make more money. At the end of the day, we need a moratorium to make sure we have the proper environmental impact studies done. We need to make sure that we have the stakeholders at the table to make sure that it's being done responsibly, because this is a technology that's not going away, and we need to make sure it's working for us and not the billionaires. Now, when it comes to the energy piece, I want to bring an Open Grid and Interconnectivity Act to Congress to make sure that we are getting rid of speculative green energy projects that are taking up the space for those green energy projects that are already built, ready to connect to the grid, and have been sitting there waiting.
Thank you, Matthew.
I can't drink ChatGPT, right? So, you know, I'm actually of the opinion, kind of similar to Pitt actually, that not only should we have a moratorium, but I don't want them in our state and they need to be taken down. The reason I say that is because we actually are building closed loop ones, and closed loop systems, they do use less water, but the water that they do use is highly toxic and it leaches into the ground. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm a lot more versed on healthcare and environmental science, and I can tell you guys, if you don't know this, we're called the Great Basin because our water stays here. It does not flow out of our state, so any pollution that goes into our basins stays here. We cannot have closed loop systems that are going to leach into the ground, into the soil, and into our groundwater and into our basins. We're going to have highly poisoned water if we do that. I do not want any data center here. And I know the building unions, the construction unions need the jobs, but you know, I think we should be focusing on jobs for them that are sustainable energy, hospitals, schools, clinics, infrastructure, not data centers. Because again, being the youngest person here, I would really like, to keep my family here for the next 6 generations. And that's not going to happen if our water is all taken, all poisoned. I've been doing a lot of work in Urington in Lyon County because they've been struggling with water since the Anaconda Mine issue. And they're still struggling with water out there. The Urington Paiute tribe has to have water bottles delivered to them. They don't have water out there, and it's not just the tribes. There are people who live in Urington who have told me they have to go to Costco to get giant jugs of water. And it's been like that for years, and our state does nothing, and Amadei does nothing because he's very close with the mines and with the tech, and they want to build more data centers in Urington when they already don't have water. So yes, for me, we're not doing this, not in Nevada.
Thank you, Morgan. And thanks again to Avery for those 2 fantastic questions. At this point, I'll turn it back to the candidates to tell them a little bit about themselves and why they would like you to vote for them and why they think they are the best candidate to be the Republican nominee in November. Thank you. Samuel, you go first.
Thank you. And thank you all for bearing with me for today, as I'm not at 100%. But having had my representative be Amadei for the last decade and a half, I thought it was important to come out here even if I'm not feeling 100%. I want to show my commitment to speaking with all of you and seeing all of you. I was born and raised in Carson City. I'm a working class Nevadan. I'm currently a bus driver. I worked fencing off abandoned mines throughout Nevada. I've worked as a wildlife firefighter. I've been all over this state. And one thing I can tell you is that something that is universal is that the people of the state are being squeezed by big money. We are all feeling that pinch. We are all struggling to afford housing, to afford health care, and this is something that we need to tackle. It's a systemic issue that isn't just with this state, it's across the United States, and that is the wealth inequality in this nation is so disproportionate that we are seeing massive layoffs of jobs. We are seeing people's salaries not going up, not meeting the cost of living, and consistently and constantly we are falling further and further behind. People of my generation struggling to afford housing, people in generation behind mine, at this point, most of them don't believe that they will ever be able to afford a house. And this is something that we need to address, that we need to fix. And thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Sammy.
Folks, I embody the potential and the failure of our country. My grandfather was a bracero, brought to this country during World War II to help with the war effort as American men went off to fight fascism overseas and many women entered the workforce. My grandfather helped to put food on the table for millions of American families. My mother also did that, and that was the environment that I was born in. So back when there was social mobility, I was the first to graduate from high school and attend college. Unfortunately, because of economic inequality, I dropped out and became homeless. I wanted to be a public servant, a career diplomat. That was my response to 9/11. But as a result of economic inequality, dropped out, became homeless, went through the system, got back up like many of us, like Rocky, got my degrees from University of Nevada, Reno, and I have that unique PhD in the School of Hard Knocks that I believe is critical to translate in Congress. We have too many lawyers and not enough people that have been in the trenches. Additionally, I've been an activist and campaign manager here in the Silver State for the last 10 years. I fought Trump not once but twice. And I know from the data and personal experience that economic inequality of the last 50 years and automation and artificial intelligence must be combated with the universal basic income of having the billionaires pay their fair share. $1,300 once a month.
Thank you, Namaya. Okay, Greg, you're up.
Thank you. Thank you to all my panelists. We're kind of getting to know each other on this trip. And my gosh, it was lonely back in 2024. There were no Democrats in this race. And I gotta say, people in this room, your side, our side, heart is in the great place. We have an open seat. I'm currently conjuring up, like Father Christmas, the image of Mark Amadei. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark, for giving us this opportunity. Because look, Mark was a go along to get along guy, and the second district has really been ignored, right? We're taken for granted. It was kind of a throwaway. And there were 27 people that jumped into this race. I am so glad to see the excitement on this side of the table, the energized on the other side of the table. I will tell you, I've enjoyed nothing more than the listening. I was at the Dalton family yesterday, listening. I will continue to listen. I was not born in Nevada. Mark had that one over me back in 2024, but I fell in love and I came here and I will listen. I will also tell you that I will be authentic. I ran as an independent before, and so my views are going to reflect a series of views that aren't maybe traditional Democratic. They will be more nonpartisan. I will be looking to run to represent the 3-to-2 ratio of Republicans that are in this district, because we're going to need to either peel some of them off or put them to sleep, or we're not going to win this race. And we need every Democrat to turn out. We need to win the plurality of the nonpartisans, but I will be authentic, and I will tell you when I think the horses are out of the barn, because I think we need to know to put our energy on the things that we can fix, and it's like that thing on the refrigerator. You gotta know the things you can't, we gotta pick our punches, and we gotta win in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Josh.
I'm Josh A. Bear. I was born in Reno to Nevada parents, but I'm totally open and straightforward about everything. I haven't lived here very long. So it's crazy that I'm doing this, but that is nothing new for me because I am bipolar. But don't let that freak you out. I've spent my whole life learning how to be this way, and I understand it. And I'm going to argue that we need it, because being bipolar means that I have been thinking outside the box my entire life. And I have done a lot. I earned a PhD in physics from the University of Texas at Austin at age 45. I have worked training AI. I have driven real change through large institutions. For example, I was a leader in the effort to completely change the way that introductory physics was taught at the University of Texas. I have been married for 28 years, I've raised 2 kids, and this is my first run for office, but I have been involved in politics for a very long time. I just swore that I would not run until my kids were grown. Now I'm going to go off script. I'm just going to speak from the heart here. I am trying to launch a movement to get big money out of politics, because the only way it's going to get done is with a popular movement. This is never going to happen top down. We need to turn people into single issue voters on this issue. And this is why I am proposing the Ban Big Money Amendment, which has strong terms that does more than overturn Citizens United. And you have heard every single person on this stage talk about the power of big money and how big money is responsible for so much of what is wrong in this country. And until we get this battle started, unless we get this battle started, big money is going to take over. Tell me that's not already happening. So I, again, want to challenge everybody on this stage to get behind the Ban Big Money Amendment. Help launch this movement. If everybody on this stage supported the Ban Big Money Amendment, that would make a statement. That would put this out into the public space. That's how this needs to start. So please help get this started.
Thank you, Josh. Kathy?
Hi, I'm Kathy Durham. I am a resident of Elko County. I live in West Wendover, so I am where Elko County either begins or ends, depending on which way you're driving. I have lived in West Wendover for 26 years, where I've spent my life or my career teaching history, government, and economics. I have taught rule of law, separation of powers, checks and balances to my students for 26 years, telling them this is how it's going to work. Pay attention. It's a republic if you can keep it, but I need you to be informed and I need you to be involved. And then they raise their hand and they say, but miss, that's not the way it's working. And I teach history and I teach the dark chapters, and they raise their hand and they say, aren't we repeating it? And that's why I got into this race, because over a year ago, I felt like our voices weren't being heard. And I felt like the checks and balances and the separation of powers and the rule of law got tossed out the window. And I said, it's time to use my teacher's voice in the halls of Congress. That's why I'm applying for the job, to be your representative. So thank you for the interview today. We very much appreciate it. Thank you. It's good to be home. I have spent the last year traveling back and forth across the state, trying to hit all the different towns and obviously the big population where the votes are, letting them know that if we're ever going to flip CD2 blue, you got to run somebody from the rules who knows the rules, okay? And that is why I think I am the best candidate for this job. I might have grown up in Salt Lake, but I lived on a farm up in Camas, Utah. I worked in a town that was transitioning from a mining town to a tourist town. I understand what it's like to live in the rurals and be forgotten and overlooked. I've run for office before, been elected, and brought great change to my community, and I'm looking forward to bringing change to CD2.
Thank you, Kathy.
Hey everybody, my name is Mark Jolly, and I'm honestly kind of tired of talking about myself, but briefly, I'm just going to say I'm a former archaeologist. I'm currently a small business owner. That's me, but I want to kind of know more about you guys. So, just briefly, anyone in here ever taken MSHA training? Yeah, you were my people. Anyone have opinions on public lands and grazing? You're also my people. So, like, one more thing, and I'm just curious. Anybody in here make their living by getting a paycheck, or somebody who does get a paycheck? Right, yes. Anybody in here who gets their money from being a major investor in stocks and that kind of thing? Really? Okay. So, yes. So, look around. All of you who put your hands up getting a paycheck, you guys are in solidarity. You guys are brothers and sisters. We all have the same issues. I don't care what side of the aisle you sit on. I don't care what sports team you cheer for. That's the thing that matters in this room. That's the thing that matters in this election. One of the things that is the biggest problem, Josh is right about this, is the money. I don't have the kind of money to spend $9 million on an election I'm not going to win. I don't have $10,000 to donate to Joe Lombardo. I don't have the kind of money where I can make any kind of donations like that and be able to sleep at night. I've got to be able to pay for my family. You guys have not gotten representation that thinks that way, moves that way. You guys need representation in Washington that understands those things. Frankly, I'm amazed that he came out to Elko and didn't get any questions on public lands or on my God, was I ready for that? But okay. So yes, come up to me afterward, ask me about my background if you're interested. But frankly, I'm more interested in you. I'm more interested in representing you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Matthew Funkin. I was born and raised in Arkansas. A rural horse farm is how I grew up. Mom said always been riding horses since before I was born. And you know, they built the farm while I was in the womb. And then I was born, and at 2 years old, I was handing fence clips to my dad. So, you know, growing up on the horse farm, taking care of the livestock, making sure that we had a barn every time a tornado came through and took it out. And the community, you know, I grew up in that rural community where we come together when we're in crisis. When community's in crisis, the rural community, they come out, no matter what your partisanship is, you come out and you help each other. And this is one of the things that we've been seeing during this Trump administration, folks coming out all across this nation, and SNAP benefits were being cut. Folks came out and they bought food and they did drives and they made sure the folks who needed it most got that food. I come from a community like you and doing that same work growing up. Yes, I moved into urban areas. Reno's the biggest city I've ever lived in my life. I moved out here in 2016. I come from the restaurant industry, civil engineering as well. I know, transitions. Got into politics for the first time in my life out here and found out this is a way that I could help people. This is a way in which we can make a difference in people's lives. And I can make a difference in my community, my family, and the future of my family's life. I'm doing this because not only is this seat flippable for the first time in its history, but I believe we need a fighter in Congress who's willing to stand up and do what's right. My mom said when something's not fair, you stand up, you say something, and you do something about it. And right now, we are seeing party leadership sitting on their thumbs for the last year and a half now, doing absolutely nothing to put guardrails on this administration. And we need someone who's willing to stand up to the billionaires, the corporations, and all the special interests, and fight like hell.
Thank you, Matthew. Morgan, your last but not least.
So my name is Morgan Wadsworth, and I am a 6th generation Nevadan. My family has been cattle ranching in this state for a very, very long time, mostly in Lincoln, in Nye, and a couple generations ago we came up to Elko as well. I was born in Washoe, though. I was the first one in my family born in Reno, and I have lived in urban Nevada and rural Nevada, and that is exactly what this district is. And that is exactly what this district needs, is we can't have somebody that is too rural who will lose Washoe to the Republicans, and we can't have someone that's too Washoe that will lose the rurals to the Republicans. And I think, you know, we're also at a point where we need something new. We need to do something new if we want to flip this district. We can't keep putting up the same candidates and doing the same thing and losing every single time. And you know, Jill Derby was the closest we ever got to flipping this district 20 years ago. That was 2006, well it's 2026. And we, once again, have an open seat, and we have an amazing chance to make this district competitive and to flip it for the first time. And you know, I met with her recently and I told her, you know I can flip this district in the general, and she agreed. And I think this is the year to do it. This is the year that CD2 can make history. Even if it's not me, we can make history and we can bring real energy and real change to Northern Nevada, and we can put a real congressman in that seat who will not ignore us for years. And I really look forward to that, and I look forward to, you know, continuing on this tour and speaking with and meeting all of you. Thank you guys so much for coming out.
Thank you, Morgan. I just want to conclude today, once again, this is our third stop on the tour. This is really what democracy looks like, and I think this is an amazing opportunity that we all have to actually have a Democratic primary, to have an open seat, and I think grassroots involvement for each and every one of you is important. So just by showing up today, you've all done a lot to contribute to making our world better. And to my panelists, it's been fabulous working with you. This is 3 down, 6 more to go. And I know I appreciate you all taking the time and taking the effort and being here. And I know the folks at Elko feel the same way. And I'll see you all tomorrow in Ely. But before we adjourn, I'm going to turn it over back to Lance Whitney, who I need to thank again for helping us, hosting us, and just being a great Democrat. And ladies and gentlemen, back to your chair.
Thank you, Sylvia, and thank all of you again for being here, and also thank you not for mentioning my awkward tan line. Sorry, I got my haircut yesterday. That being said, I just want to once again thank the candidates that showed up. They chose to be. And in the words of our dearly departed fearless leader, Senator Harry Reid, you cannot win in the rules if you do not show up to the rules. So once again, a round of applause for the candidates.